glasses.
Oh.
Hey, welcome back, podcast friends. And today we have another interview podcast for you. And today I want to introduce our guest, Helen Sernett. Is that how you pronounce it, Sernett?
That is how you pronounce
Okay.
it. Yep.
Helen is the host of the podcast Sleep Lists, and she'll tell you all about that as we go through this podcast. She started her podcast after realizing her view of life being work hard and sleep when you're dead was actually killing her. So now, after having suffered from insomnia herself, she now realized how truly important sleep is for your overall health. So in today's episode, we'll discuss with Helen how sleep affects our health. Thank you so much, Helen, for joining us
Yes,
today.
thank you. Yeah, so
Thank
why
you
don't you?
for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey to this, and then what made you come up with this podcast, Sleep Lists?
Yeah. So thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about it. I once you get me going, can't stop. So
Okay.
thank
That's
you
what we
so much
want.
for having me on. Yeah, I was so I had a 20-year career as a fundraiser and for nonprofit organizations, and that is a somewhat high stress job. It's not quite sales, but it is a lots of 10% more goals every quarter, every year. You're trying to raise a lot of money for causes that you care a ton about, and so it feels personal. And it was really passion-based, like work that I love to do for a long time, but it wore me down. So I got to a place where I was experiencing all kinds of health issues. I had rashes. I was starting to get all these like inflammatory issues and food sensitivities that I never had before. I was getting headaches. I was getting frozen shoulder. I had all these symptoms of, depression and anxiety that were really, really affecting my life, affecting my output, really impacting my relationships, my closest relationships with my family and friends. And I was really not well. Like, it was clear that I was not well, and I needed to figure out a way to make it stop. So I quit my career on the advice of a therapist who was like, "Could you take a break?" And so I took a little break, and then I was like, "Nah, I'm not going back to this. Like, I don't know, I'm not doing it anymore." She's like, "Try a month," and I was like, "Not going back." After a month, I was like, and then so I quit my job with much support from my colleagues and my husband, and was kind of like, all right, I just need to dedicate some time to healing and myself. And I was getting nowhere because I was staying up until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't get to sleep. My head was just racing with every little thought you could think of. It's like, things that you don't even bother coming into your mind when you're walking around throughout your day. And then all of a sudden I go to sleep and I'm wondering, like, what if there was, an issue with this dam, and would that affect the water levels here? And would that mess with, our plumbing issues, like things that don't matter, that I mean, like, I guess they would matter, but they really don't, like, and then I can do nothing about anyway. So I was not able to sleep. I was having a terrible time sleeping, and that was making it so that I wasn't really getting well. I didn't have the stress of my work in my life, but I was still in this like high intensity, like stress hormones all the time mode. And I was like, I really have to figure out how to sleep. I used to a long time ago when I was, younger, be able to just, hit the pillow 5-10 minutes. I was out like a light. It was a dream. I slept wherever, whenever. It didn't matter who's, like what mattress I was on. If I fell asleep on the couch, like I could sleep in the car, I could sleep on a plane, but like it got just, none of that was true anymore. So I started looking to, meditations and yoga and things like that. And they were helpful-ish a little bit, but they weren't really doing the trick most of the time. I tried all the different colors of noises. There was so much hype about green noise. I'm not a green noise person. I'm not an any noise person. Like, I don't like static in the background.
Right.
Tried nature sounds because I was like, oh, I used to like, sleeping out under the stars and like that kind of. No, I was just like waiting for like the fake owl hoots to happen in the nature soundtrack.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was terrible. And so I I was like, okay, back when I was a kid, I used to just be able to like start counting and go to sleep. Like if I was having any trouble sleeping at all, I could just start counting. I was like, but I can't seem to do that now because my brain interrupts my own counting process. I can't seem to keep it focused and on track because I'm scattered and stressed out and whatever. And so I was like, I know the internet exists. Somebody must have already done this. There's got to be a soundtrack out there that's nothing but somebody counting from 0 to 500. I will just play that and it'll be great.
Right.
It doesn't exist. I don't know why, but it doesn't. I tried to find it on like English as a second language because I thought, oh, people might, listen to the numbers to learn how to count because that's a thing you need to learn how to do in a language. No, they couldn't. I found charts. I found like electronic, like fake voices, robot voices doing it. But I'm like, I need a soothing voice to
Right.
just count.
Mhm.
So I made my own recording. I started first like on my iPhone. I made like a recording of myself and then I was like, all right, I need to actually do this and play it. And that's when the idea for sleep lists came to be where it was like, oh, I could do other lists too that would be kind of fun. I could do presidents of the United States and their vice presidents, states and
Mhm.
their capitals. I could do like the periodic table. Like I could do all these different things. And so as I
But
was
did you,
recovering from not working and trying to help myself heal, I started making these podcasts and putting them out there.
so did you ever do the number one?
I did. It's the very
Did-
first one. It's my worst one. I'm like, I need to re-record it. I really do because I don't like it as much as the other ones now. I
Yeah.
prefer the other ones, but it was the inspiration, so I don't think I'll ever take it down
Right.
either.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
no. Yeah, I just do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you said that you don't just read the list, but you also try to put like kind of have it like monotone and put a cadence to it so it matches your heart
Yeah.
rate or
Yes. So I'm no good at monotone. Like I am not the teacher in Ferris Bueller. I can't do that. I know that helps a lot of people, but
Uh-huh.
but it is very soothing. Like
Mhm.
it's the calmest, most relaxed kind of voice. And I go down a few registers and I just talk about like, hey, welcome to this podcast and you're gonna be okay here and you'll be safe. Um and then I lay out what I'm going to do a list about and then I do that list and I do keep it to about 60 beats per minute. Like I have that metronome going in my head so that the pace is kind of similar to like what a resting heart rate would be.
Mhm.
And also that way it has kind of a rhythm to it. I like to do it a little rhythmically. I think that helps with the lulling of going to sleep in the same way that sometimes like listening to ocean waves might. So
Mhm.
Right,
yeah.
right. And that's what we went out to dinner with some friends of ours the other day, and I was talking to him about this, getting ready to do this podcast. And he was saying that sounded like a fantastic idea because he actually sleeps with his earbuds in.
Hmm.
Because him and his wife listen to different things, but he was listening to stuff. He was listening to music at first, but then it'd be soothing of first, and then all of a sudden you get the spikes and it bring him out. So then he started listening to I think he started listening to what was it?
I don't
It's
know.
sort of like historical fiction books because he thought that'll be, low and monotone. But he said that didn't get it either. He said because the pace changed in different things, and when the pace changed, it woke him up. So I told him what you were doing, and he's like, "That sounds exactly like what he needs to do." Yeah. So I'll be curious when we talk to him again, see if he's done it and what he thought about it.
Yeah. I mean, I like it's the type of thing where I want people to find the tools that work really well for them. And I think it's awesome to have multiple tools because maybe your headphones stop working one day, or maybe, you don't have access to the internet somewhere that you are and you didn't download this, like whatever it is. Like I want people to have lots of different tools and ultimately to get to a place where they're comfortable enough going to sleep again, where they can start to do it themselves. Like I don't need sleep lists every night anymore, but I did for like 6 months straight.
Right. Right.
And I listened to them, pretty habitually still.
Uh-huh.
So,
So, did you notice for yourself that they kept you asleep listening to
yeah.
that or
So I've never had a big problem once I actually go to sleep. staying asleep. And even if I'm woken up by like the need to use the restroom or whatever, I'm pretty good being able to fall back asleep unless I get too awake. So that hasn't been an issue for me, but I do have listeners who say that their issue is getting back to sleep once they wake up, and they use it for that as well. Like they'll, turn it on again, like they'll restart a list or something like that. When they need to fall back asleep again. So it helps for both those scenarios. I don't get a lot of people saying that it has made them like when the sleep list stops, they don't wake up again. Like, so they're usually pretty long. The shortest ones are like 20 minutes, but they go longer, and you can, depending on the apps that you're using, string them together, which I've done before where I wanted a little bit more time to make sure I'm in a deep sleep. But I fade the music out really slowly. So like it really shouldn't wake people up as it's closing out. That's my goal, is to not do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I listened to the president's one, and that one was really good. I really like that.
It's the most popular one.
Yeah,
I don't know why, but and I've often wondered, like, are people listening to it because they want to like know the history of the presidents and the vice presidents? Like they listen to the whole thing, or are they falling asleep? And I never know.
I bet it's yes. Yes on both. That's what I do, is like, well, if it's going to help me sleep and I get to learn the presidents that I probably should have learned in the 6th grade.
Well, there's more now too. So yeah. The vice presidents on that one was really interesting to me, because when I was doing my research, I learned that there were lots of administrations that went almost for a full, a full term without vice president.
Huh.
I know. I didn't even know that was possible in our government, but
now we know everything's possible with our government.
Yeah,
that's not a good thing.
But yeah, that was a fun one. I also really had a blast putting together the list of beige paint colors.
Oh,
so
wow.
I didn't use like Benjamin Moore's list of beige paints or anything like that. I generated a full list of it's hundreds of different colors for beige, and that was a really fun list to come up with and to build. So
do you find you have a hard time coming up with lists? Or is it?
No, I have a really long list now of like ideas for lists, and I keep on coming up with more. Like the other day, I was just sort of like thinking about, it'd be really good to do a list of different articles of clothing. Like there's so many different articles of clothing you can wear, and like skirts have all these different names, tops have all these different names. Like,
that's true.
And I was like, I could totally do a full list. I mean, as long as you've got about 100 entries, you can pretty much do a list.
Right. And then you keep the cadence, and you got the music in the background and the whole thing. So when you started doing this, did it improve your health?
I had immediately, like, I slept better. And so like immediately it was helping my mental health. That was like the first thing that I noticed. It was like, I stopped snapping at everyone in my life. I started being able to like be happy, which is kind of a big deal when you haven't been happy for a long time. So mental health was the first thing that I noticed. And then I started to have less issues with my digestive system. So it was like, all of those inflammation issues that I was having, they seemed to went away. I wasn't as, I didn't break out in eczema as often. So yes, it did start to have better health. I still have health issues. I need to lose some weight and probably change my diet up some more, but I'm able to expend energy on that and have more success with that now. Right. Whereas previously, I mean, I'd make like 5 decisions in a day and I'd be overwhelmed.
Right. Yeah. Well, just like trying to lose weight or at least eat healthy. If you're tired, I know for myself, no, I'm thinking more food will make me more awake.
Well, and like my brain just wanders. It's like, chips would be good. I'd really like chips. I don't have chips, but I could make popcorn. I could make a big bowl of popcorn. That's what I'll do. Right. Like,
don't make a list about that.
I did do a season. The last season that I did was all about like food stuff because I have such a passion for cooking. I love cooking. And I was like, oh, I don't want to make people hungry though. So what am I
Right.
going to do?
Right.
Spices.
So yeah, I did one about, I do want to still do my spice one because I still think that'd be really fun. But I did one about like tableware and cookware. I did edible flowers. So I've managed to find some things that like wouldn't make people particularly hungry. But that was the biggest struggle. I was like, oh, I'm doing a whole 6 of these, and on food, but not really about food because I don't want to make people hungry.
Yeah.
So how often do you drop a new podcast? Once a week?
Well, I'm trying to get into the habit of having 6 published a quarter, but I'm behind schedule for this month. So I'm hoping to get a new series out in May.
Okay, that's
Awesome.
cool. Now, when I was reading on stuff about you, I saw a lot where you call yourself the sleep evangelist. What do you still do that? And what exactly did you mean by that?
I do, because I feel like, okay, so I call myself the sleep evangelist because one, I will talk endlessly about how valuable sleep is and how much I love it, especially now that I get it.
Yeah,
And
really.
it makes a huge difference when you're like, ooh, I didn't have this thing, and it's very important to me. But also because I hear so often in the health and wellness space a lot of information about diet and exercise. Super important, diet and exercise, but good sleep impacts all of the same areas of health that diet and exercise impacts.
Yep.
And it takes up, a third of our day, a third of our lives, really, when we think about it. And yet I don't hear people talking about that. So you might spend, if you're really conscientious about diet and exercise, you might spend 5-6 hours a week exercising. You might spend maybe 10, but you need to spend whatever 8 times 7 hours a
Right.
week,
Right.
doing sleep. And so I think it can take up the most of your time, and it's being left out of a lot of equations. So that's why I talk about it more, and why I say I'm an evangelist, because I really want people to figure out for them what's going to motivate them to get their sleep and to change their mindset from one where, oh, I can sleep when I'm dead, to sleep is going to help me stay alive longer and be healthier.
Right. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And that's something that we found also, because usually when you're, especially like if you're first starting off with a new, say, workout program or anything, new job or whatever, you start thinking about where you can start cutting, and people automatically start thinking, oh, sleep is a good place I can cut.
Going to get up earlier.
Yeah, that's the last thing that they do need to realize. If you're going to do it, do not cut sleep. If you need to get up earlier, you don't do it by cutting your sleep short. You do it by going to bed earlier and just resetting that thing, because there's so many good things that sleep does with your body, clearing the brain of its metabolized, clearing your body of it, growth. I mean,
yes,
so many things. So this is wonderful that you're doing this.
Yeah, well, yeah, when people are starting a new exercise routine, and trying to get any new habit going, you need your sleep to reinforce that. Like, you
Exactly.
absolutely. You did an episode on sleep, and so I know you know all about all of those different phases of sleep and what is so important. But it's so, it blew my mind to be like, oh, I can actually be hurting myself if I exercise too hard and don't get enough sleep.
Yes.
Like, you can literally, pull things and your muscles don't work as well if you're trying to be a serious athlete about something. If you're training for something big, you need your sleep to build those muscles and to help your body stay healthy.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And just like you said, I mean, when you get a good amount of sleep, you can handle stress a lot better. You don't go into the amygdala part of your brain. You can actually handle stress, all that kind of stuff, which is huge, because people especially when you're first trying to work out or start something new job or whatever, and you're stressed out, getting less sleep is just going to stress you out even more and actually make it worse, because stress and inflammation of the body is huge to our health. And people just need to realize that's not something that you waver on. You need to prioritize. You really need 7 to 9 hours sleep every night. Don't say, oh, I can live off 4 hours sleep, because your body can't, no matter whether you think you can or not.
No, and they say it's worse than like driving drunk. Driving tired is worse than driving drunk, or just as bad anyway.
Yeah.
And we have laws in place that like, you can be stopped and tested for, your alcohol levels, but we don't have laws in place that allow you to be stopped for being drowsy at the wheel. But it's just as dangerous, and you're not as alert, your reaction times aren't as good. And I love that you keep on saying the new job thing, because it's exhausting starting a new job. And I would love to tell anyone who's starting a new job, it's super exciting, but like, this is not a time to be like up late partying. You need to like really hunker down on those hours of sleep so that you can actually absorb all the new information you're learning, even if it's just your colleagues' names, even if you're like the boss at how to do your job
Right.
and you're just learning, new systems. That's still a lot of new information that you're processing.
Right.
So do you think that when you were listening to the presidents and the vice presidents and you're falling asleep, can you remember? Do you think? No, they won't just come to me.
I mean,
it may,
the fifth president.
who knows?
I
No, I
like
didn't know.
the learning through osmosis thing. I don't know if it works very well. I feel like it's better if you learn the thing and then you reinforce it when you're
There
sleeping.
you go. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you, for instance, if you listen while you're awake to the presidents and then you also listen to it when you're asleep, you will probably learn it better in terms of like your mind will be myelinating that information in your brain.
And speaking of myelinating, so you were talking about neuroplasticity. Is that something that you'd want to talk about, neuroplasticity, and what that means and how this helps?
Yeah. So when I was depressed, one of the things about suffering with depression is that it feels permanent and endless. And one of the things that really helped me kind of crawl out of that space was understanding that my brain had moved into this depressed state and it could move out of it. And there were active things that I could do to help it. One was get enough sleep. That was a big thing that helped it a lot. But I could also change the way I was thinking. Once I had enough sleep and was not completely exhausted and super inflamed, I had this space in my brain to mull around new things and to try different things and to experiment and be on top of my negative thoughts, right? So I could try new tools to manage my moods and my feelings when I wasn't asleep, and I could do those better once I was. So once I got the sleep that I needed, if that makes sense. Let me make sure that I'm saying this well. It's just that I want to say that when we're sleeping, we're able to create new habits. And some of the habits that I had to create from being depressed was to stop thinking negatively and to reflect on the moments and things that make me happy or bring me joy. And practicing that was easier once I had enough sleep, both because I could try new things because I had the energy to do so, and because I was sleeping enough to help to cement those as actual habits in my daily life.
Right. See, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I mean. There's lots of things that people do with neuroplasticity and talk about neuroplasticity, but for me, it was the knowing that my brain could change and that I didn't have to have this permanence of weight and sadness on me, that I could do something and that I had all the tools inside of my own body to do it was pretty amazing.
Now, do you, on your podcast, like before or after, do you talk about other things that people can do to help with their sleep or anything like
So
we were
that's
talking
why I'm
earlier
so
about
far
light?
behind this month. Thank you for asking. I've been trying to create some more episodes that are shorter. So I have my long sleep list episodes, and then I want to also provide some shorter lists that are tips, tools, and truths, right? So about sleep, and just tackle one little topic, do like a 5-minute, good morning, folks. I hope you slept well last night. Here's something to think about in your journey today that has to do with sleep.
Oh, yeah, I
Right.
like
So,
that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we were talking about this before we started recording, but about going to sleep with the television.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I used to do that. That was,
Right.
that was
But that's could be
that
a
was my
tip.
20s.
That's right. But let's not do that because of the light.
Yeah, because of the
No.
light, the sound, the all kinds of
Mhm.
different
Well,
reasons.
Yeah, you don't really want that light going. Also, you don't have control over what's on the TV necessarily, at least when I was doing it back in the late 90s.
mhm,
It was whatever was broadcast on the television. And so you had no control over what was coming into your space.
Mhm.
And it could be, news about war and death and destruction. And
mhm.
that's not really productive to healthy sleep.
Right.
So so and wellness and happiness. So yeah, I like to say try to turn off your screens. It's really hard. A lot of people use
Mhm.
their screens right up until the second that they go to sleep.
Yeah.
Um, if you, at the very least, almost every phone has some sort of way to create do not disturb modes.
Mhm.
And so I have a one sheet that helps with that for iOS and Androids on my website. If you go to sleepless.com on the resource section, just setting up your phone to have like kind of a do not disturb sleep to help remind you to go to sleep when you're supposed to, so that random people can't call you drunk at 3 a.m. and wake you up. Like,
Mhm.
That's right.
and if you're a caregiver or somebody who does need to have their phone come through, you can set up numbers that will come through,
Mhm.
and then it
Right.
is an emergency and it's worth waking up for because it's a
Yeah.
loved one or something that's
Mhm.
important to you.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's what we have too. We have our favorites on the phone. So our sons, no matter where they are, they can always get a hold of us
Mhm.
no matter what we have it set on.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's another thing, we're talking about things like light, how light affects your sleep and getting rid of all that. Another thing that I heard that I really like is because you're supposed to turn all the lights off because how that totally affects your circadian rhythms and
Yeah.
melatonin being secreted and everything. But taking pen to paper and actually write down everything that's on your mind, all the things you need to do the next day, do all that kind of stuff. Because if you do it at night, one, you're doing pen to paper, you can move it over to electronics the next morning. But one, you're putting pen to paper, so you're going to remember it more, but you're also getting that out of your mind. So you're not sitting there and stewing over that when you're sleeping. Also, it's like, I don't have to worry about this because I've already got it taken care of for tomorrow, or I've already got that part planned, or, I thought that
Yeah,
was neat.
there's a really good one of the things that I suggest that people add to their nighttime routines is plan your day tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
just take a second and plan your day. Just put in your
Mhm.
priority things, the things that you really want to do, look a little bit further out in the week if you want, but like kind of plan your day so that you know what you're capable of and
Mhm.
what you actually have time for, what else is on your calendar, who else needs the car
Mhm.
or your
Right.
resources or whatever it is. So there are fewer surprises, and that sort of helps minimize stress throughout the day. And like you said, it can help you kind of get those things that maybe you're worried about out.
Mhm.
Um, I like the idea of putting pen to paper. I have a whiteboard that I do it with. So,
Sure.
that
As
that
long as they're
helps
not
too.
electronics. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And also the whiteboard for me and my family, it's just nice because they're like, okay, this is mom's schedule. This is like what's going on in her day. This is where I know she might have time to help me with homework, whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
So, and I can and I mean, it's also a whiteboard, so it doesn't feel like I can't erase it, like it's meant to be erased. So if like
Right.
everything goes crazy and I can't get to everything on that board, I can just erase it and try again the next day. And
Yeah.
there's no evidence. It's all gone.
That's right. See, another thing I hear people like, I don't, it's not a big deal for me, but women, setting out knowing exactly what they're going to wear the next day. So they're not getting up and everything's all frantic. You already know what you're going to wear. Eating, our thing is plan out what you're going to eat the next day. You should already have that plan before you ever go to bed that night. That way you're not caught off guard and you have to go to, horrible things like vending machines or fast food restaurants or anything like that. So already plan ahead what you're going to eat and just all these things. If you get it out of your head and then you turn on sleep lists, get rid of all the lights in your house, get to bed at a good
Yeah.
time. And,
Yeah.
it won't hurt. And
Nope.
it definitely can
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, the keeping things like keeping the lights low at night is another thing. Like even if you do like watch TV at night, try to do it with a little bit lower light. Like you can even change your screen to like emit less light. just so that your body starts to be like, okay, it's nighttime and it needs a melatonin. Also, I mean, set a reasonable bedtime for yourself if you can, if you don't have like alternating shifts and things like that. But if you can set up a schedule and keep to it even on the weekends, that's really helpful for your circadian rhythms. The first time I ever heard that advice about planning what you're going to wear the next day was actually from a guy.
Oh,
No
really?
joke. Yeah, it was from a guy, and he laid out he was a leader in fundraising, my old career, and he laid out his, everything, his pants, his socks, his blazer, his shirt, his tie, like the whole thing. He laid it out every night the night before. I suspect maybe his wife actually did it for him.
There you go. Could be.
But he said he did it, so I'll
give him that one.
I will give him that credit, but yeah.
Well, there's also, getting daylight. People we're all in our offices or inside our homes working from home when we don't get outside. That's what
this room is completely black. Yes.
Right.
Well, we're trying to get out more, just to go for a walk or just be outside.
And we call it our news. It's our good news for NEWS, and then we add another S. So it's nutrition, exercise, water, sleep, and sunshine.
I love that.
You got to maximize all 5 of those. And sunshine, it is so rare that people get enough sunshine, get enough vitamin D. We definitely saw that through COVID. Everybody was coming in, they're magnesium deficient, they're vitamin D deficient. And it's because nobody gets out in the sun anymore. And when they do, they put on all this toxic chemical laden sunscreens. It's like, stop, let the sun do what the sun does. It's so healthy for our body in so many different ways. So,
well, yeah. And just getting outside, there's such good research now kind of in both Eastern and Western culture. But when I first heard about it, it was a Japanese team that actually did it about, spending time even in a park, like not even in like full on nature, but in a man-made setting, just outdoors, how beneficial that is to your health and wellness.
Oh yeah, it's great. And seriously, if you can take your shoes off and walk barefoot on the ground, grounding is huge. And there's so much more energy coming out about, or so much more information about the energy and the grounding and how we get the energy and how that affects the water and the blood flow in our bodies. And there's a lot of really, really, really great information coming out now with that.
There's a reason why the kids nowadays say, go outside and touch some grass. Stop being cranky.
Yes.
Go outside and touch some grass.
They say that?
Yeah.
That's funny.
They do.
Yeah,
it's a thing. It's a whole meme even.
Really?
Yeah. And it's funny too, because like I realized how much time we spend inside and in man-made environments when my daughter was really young. She was about 2 years old and she was, walking on her own and kind of doing her own thing. And she was afraid of the grass. Like she was just afraid to even touch it or be on it. And I was like, no. Like, we have to be okay with the grass. Like you'd show her that you could be on the grass and you could, you could
enjoy it,
crawl on it and roll in it and roll down hills. And like, there's lots of fun things to do on the grass.
Yeah.
It took her like a long time, like several, months basically of us consciously exposing her to the grass. And we just had apparently been too busy going to work and giving her to, sending her to daycare and whatever, that she hadn't really experienced grass, even though we had it in our front yard.
Yeah.
So
I bet that's not uncommon. I bet.
There are, you can look online for kids being afraid of grass, and there's lots of videos of kids being afraid of grass. So I didn't feel terrible about it, but I knew it had to be fixed.
Right. Yeah.
Got to get outside. And even the sun, what we're talking about the sun, they're talking about it's really best if you can actually be out in it and you actually watch the sun come up and you actually watch the sun go down, and how just that, and with the angle of the sun and how it hits the top part of your eye, that helps get your circadian rhythms going. That's what actually causes you to secrete your melatonin as soon as it goes from light to dark. That's why if you keep your stuff on your phone, your television, you're just preventing your melatonin from being excreted, which starts screwing up everybody's lights or everybody's sleep. So there's a lot of neat things on how to get to sleep, if you really are having trouble doing that, and a lot of people are.
Yes. There's some populations where up to 50% of the population reports having trouble with sleep.
Mhm.
And so that's an epidemic, right? That's a huge problem in America. And it's one that we really have to shift our culture and our way of thinking to really prioritize that sleep. And so yeah, there's all the tools that you can use. And it's good to know about them and to try them and to see what works for you.
Yep.
All of them should have some benefit to you, but, like, I have met people who swear by green noise, and I can't.
Mhm.
No. I like static, I don't wanna listen to no,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it
We
doesn't do
use
it
a
for me.
we use a fan.
Yeah. We actually use a fan.
We would travel with a fan. So
I like
Nice.
I like it for the coolness. So I have it blowing
Mhm.
on me, but not on her. So she can listen to it, but I have to angle it a certain way so it only blows on me. So I can hear it and I can feel the coolness. Because keeping your room cold also. That's what they recommend is keeping your room between like 62, 68 degrees,
Mhm.
something like that. Because
Yeah,
that
my
also helps.
daughter and I really enjoy sleeping in the cold, and my husband is, like, under 12 blankets.
Yeah,
Like,
which that's
he
fine.
wants, he wants it to be all snuggled up under there, so, like, he gets all the blankets on the bed, we have a ceiling fan going, which doesn't make a lot of noise, but, that's
Just the air
fine
flowing.
for us, it's the airflow.
Mhm.
And it's funny because even though he sleeps all covered up under the blankets, he will be the one who turns the fan on and, like,
Yeah.
makes it go because he just, like, he wants to feel it a little bit on his face, or
Uh-huh.
he
Yeah.
want like, it's so
You know,
there's
or
yeah, definitely thinking about the environment that you're sleeping in, as well as your approach to, mentally how you're gonna go to sleep. The other thing that really helps for anyone who's dealing with anxiety and has a lot of anxiety around sleep is that there's been some really good research around, um, even just resting still and pretending to sleep
Mhm.
has some of the benefits of sleep. It's not as
oh,
good as a full night's sleep, but you're still doing well. You're still like it's better than getting up and watching TV,
mhm.
Right.
which I have been guilty of, but
Yeah.
so no judgment. But in
Pretty sure a lot of
theory,
people do.
Mhm.
you should try to stay in bed, close your eyes, and, the way I do it is I pretend like when you were a little kid and you, didn't wanna get caught staying up, like reading a book or, like, watching something or playing with a video game, and so you hear your parents' footsteps up the door, and then you pull the covers over your head and, like, just pretend to sleep. I pretend to do that. I'm like, "Okay, I'm just gonna pretend to sleep like that," and just,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
my breathing, my eyes closed, like, my mouth kind of a little bit open.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because sometimes if I wake up at like 4 or 4:30, so that's a
That's
terrible
rough.
time. It
That's
is
close
Yeah,
to when you're
that's
gonna get ready
get
common.
for
up,
I
right.
mean, we're
Yeah, so
6:30 wakers, so yeah,
uh-huh.
Yeah,
that's
We're
we're
between
5:30
5:30 to 6:30. It kinda depends.
yeah.
on the day.
Yeah, but, because 'cause I'll lay there and think, "Should I just get up?" But I usually don't. And then if I fall asleep, then isn't there like a 90-minute cycle or
Yeah,
something that
yeah,
you go
most
through?
cycles are
And
about
then
90.
I fall asleep through the alarm. I don't sleep through it, but I've been sleeping really good. So that's my time, it seems like, is like 4. I like to wake up at that weird
Yeah. I
time.
mean,
I guess put in your sleep lists.
Yeah, that'd be another
put on
good
the
time for the
sleep
sleep
apps,
list.
you
Uh-huh.
can listen to those. The other thing that I think it kinda depends on what you've scheduled for your day, right? So if you've scheduled your day in such a way where you've gotta be good to go at 6, but you've got a little extra time in the evening where maybe you can get to bed earlier and you do feel awake,
Mhm.
I say listen to your body too. Like if your body's
Yep,
saying like stay awake, like all right, like but I'm going to get up and I'm going to do stuff. Like it's 4:30 in the morning, I'm going to get myself to a place where I can be doing yoga while the sun rises, right? Or
right,
like
right.
really taking in a moment or maybe yoga's not your thing. Maybe it's coffee and a book. Whatever it is that like floats your boat, but be mindful of using that time and not just like scrolling on your phone
Right.
or not that you do that, but that's
Mhm.
definitely another thing
I
I
Yeah.
have
never
to be cautious
yeah.
of. But yeah.
No. That's a hard one.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
and like we said, you kinda touched on, but like we said earlier too, if you know you're gonna have to get up at a certain time the next day, don't take that away from your sleep. Just adjust it with what time you go to bed the next night. Because a lot of people walk around and they think they're getting good sleep. They say, "Oh, I sleep great. I can sleep anywhere. I can be asleep, within a minute after I lay my head down. I can be sleeping at a stoplight. He's like, no, that means you don't have good sleep. That is sleep deprivation that your body talks to.
Yep.
So it's like, if you fall asleep before 5 minutes after laying down, that's sleep deprivation. But if it takes you over 15 minutes to fall asleep, that could be sleep deprivation also. So there's that fine window. But a lot of people think that they get all this, oh, I can sleep anywhere. I got great sleep. It's like, if you sleep anywhere, that's not good sleep.
Yeah. And it's hard too, because people pride themselves about it. It's like a lifestyle, right? And so there's a lot of people's identity wrapped up in their belief system around sleep. And so sometimes they don't really hear you the first, third, fifth, eighth time that you tell them, or that you're talking to them about it. And so sometimes I you just have to like help people get as far as they can get when they're getting there, and meet them where they're at. But I always recommend, when I hear people that have sort of these red flags, but it feels like it's such a part of who they are. It's like, well, have you ever thought about just challenging yourself to have an 8-hour window for sleep just this week? Just do it for these 7 days. See if it changes anything for you. It might. And so like, because you can't be like, oh my God, you're terrible at this. Why do you think you're good at it? But you're kind of like saying that in your head. Yeah.
So how many of these sleep lists do you have? How many of these done?
So there's 3 seasons, and that has come to about 20 episodes, 21 episodes. I've got another 6 that are going to come out soon. That I'm working on, and I'm trying to upload them to Patreon first, and then to the World Wide Web to view at large.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. So do they contact you? Do your friends and everything give you examples, or, hey, why don't you do a list on this? Or why don't you do a list on this?
Yes.
I bet.
It's funny too, because like sometimes they'll give me examples. I'm like, oh, working on that one. Yep. Like already in the working. Or they'll be like, oh, have you done this one? I'm like, yep, I did that one. I did a whole season based on like idioms or expressions related to sleep and rest. That's how I got to the paints, the different colors of beige paint, because it was like watching paint dry. I did a dog breeds for Let Sleeping Dogs Lie. I did baby names for Sleeps Like a Baby. I did a list of what was it? Sheep, breeds of sheep. So breeds of sheep and blades of grass.
I was just going to say that'd be funny to do one on sheep, since everybody tells you to count sheep anyway.
Yep.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It's over 400 different breeds of sheep, and it turns out that there's like 700, but I couldn't verify them all. I'm kind of like, I don't like to give bad information, and so I try really hard to like actually do the research if it's something factual. And then I also try to balance that with ones where I'm just like making it up as I go. So I get to have fun too.
Right.
Yeah. It sounds like you're learning a lot of stuff then too.
Yes. Yeah. If you want, like, it's one of the ways to take a deep dive on something. So an episode that I'm working on researching and scripting now is battles in the Civil War. And so it's like, yeah, okay, that there were, and it turns out that like obviously all the battles have been listed and they're categorized, and so I'm like playing with doing them chronologically, and like how I can talk about them and name them, and they all have names, and I don't know, it's interesting. But yeah, it's nothing that I would have researched if I hadn't been like, I want to do a list about this, and then I get to go do it.
Right.
I was curious, on the podcasting side, when you're doing the list, do you notice that there's a lot that you have to edit out, or once you get in that cadence, it's pretty easy to do your list in cadence, and there's not really a whole lot of editing before you publish it?
Yeah, it depends on how hard the words are to pronounce. So I did Michelin star restaurants, and I included, I can't remember if I included the chef names, but anyway, some of them were difficult to pronounce. And like I did something like Latin names of something, constellations, and that was kind of hard. Like that was another tough one where I was like, ooh. So I try not to give myself too many of those lists where it's really hard to pronounce, because I will get tripped up on them, and then it's like, you have to like cut And then when you're editing it back together again, you have to be really careful to, keep your cadence and not mess up the beats and stuff. So yeah, I tend to be able to do at least 5 or 10 minutes at a time, and then I have a blunder. I do on my Patreon, I do have a couple of blooper reels from when I've been trying to say things and they did not come out right.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Oh, that is funny.
So do you have any suggestions for people that have kids? We've got schools getting ready to end for the summer. And then, even with our kids, we'd be like 2 weeks till school starts. You guys need to start getting to bed. And that's just
not now.
Yeah,
they're adults
gone.
now.
Yeah,
but.
they're gone now.
Yeah.
But like for anybody that has children, it's like, how do you get them? Do you know of any kids that will listen to your sleep lists or anything?
Yes, actually, my daughter's turning 13, and she and her friends have listened to it. In fact, the other day I had one of her friends stop me. It was like, "When is the next sleep list coming out? I want a new one." Okay. All right then.
Yeah. That's
so yeah, kids do listen to them, and I think that they can be really, can be very relaxing for anyone. There's nothing R-rated or anything about them. So it's all just words basically. But I think that the biggest thing that we can do with our kids is like role model the behavior. So if you're not showing that you are setting yourself a bedtime and getting up at a certain time, you can't expect your kids to do that.
Right.
No,
So, and if you're telling them, okay, you got to get to sleep earlier. One of my favorite conversations ever with my daughter was she was really upset because all of her friends got to stay up later than her. And all of their parents said they were old enough to stay up later. And she's like, why am I not old enough to stay up later? I'm the same age as my friends. And I said, because I don't base how late you stay up on your age. I base it on when I know you need to wake up to get to school.
Right. Exactly.
And she was like, wait, what? It's not based on an age? I was like, no, it's based on when you need to wake up.
Yeah.
And your ride comes at 7:15. I need you to have had breakfast and be ready. And there's a certain amount of time that all of that takes. So you have to wake up at 6 a.m. And that means that you have to go to bed before 10.
Right. Exactly. Nope. That's the perfect way to do it.
But she was just like, oh, so like, it doesn't matter how old I am. No, it doesn't matter. Like if you're an adult and you live a life where your career has you up until 3 a.m., okay, but that means that you've just got to be sure that you're getting your 7 to 8 hours of sleep in.
Right.
Steve did that for 15 years. He worked the night shift. So more challenging.
That was really hard because worked the graveyard shift for 4 days a week and then had to flip around that night. I'd get home one morning, flip around that night because I had a day shift that I worked on Friday. So I'd flip around to go to a day shift. And I did that for 15 years, but it worked, but that's exactly what I thought is like, okay, I need to know what time to get to bed.
I often think it's a little bit odd that places like that are supposed to provide us with healthcare put their staff through such terrible practices. Like
somebody's
that's right. Someone's gonna do it.
I know someone has to be there. It's true. You can't like not, and you have to do shift work. That's why I do always say like, I am so grateful for the people who do shift work and I want them to be able to do their shift work well. Because my EMS people, the firefighters, the folks in the hospitals, like I want them to be able to do their jobs really, really well. And so I want them to get enough sleep whenever they can get that sleep. And it may mean that when they're doing shifts and like you said, flipping around the next day, like you may be one of those people that needs 9 hours of sleep just because you're not going to get good sleep because you're shifting your circadian rhythm so often.
Right. Yeah. So I'm curious in your stuff. So like the stuff that we've learned, we've already talked about a lot of, decreasing the light at night. Even if I wear eye pillows, even now, even though I don't work graveyard anymore, eye mask, I still wear the eye mask because of all the lights, any little lights, watching the sunset, working out in the mornings,
outside if you can work out in the morning outside.
Yes. At least go for a walk. If you can't do anything else, walk outside. And So what other things, obviously get rid of the noise, except for your sleep list or your
Yeah.
fan, but
Yeah.
any noises that go up and down can shift you out. What other stuff have you heard as far as?
So, hydration is really
Yes.
important, but if you can front load that at the beginning of your day so that you're not waking up to use the restroom at night,
Mhm.
that's really good. And I know that, as we get older, that's an issue for a lot of people. And
Right.
so, hydration is super important. I'm
And
not
just real
saying
quick,
yeah.
and again, if you do get up in the middle of the night, still keep the lights out. Keep the lights as
Mhm.
dim as possible. Don't go turn the bathroom light on where it's real bright. Just go to the bathroom and get back to bed.
My husband turns on the bright overhead light
Oh,
Uh,
in the bathroom, and I don't understand. I know, like, it's because he wants to be able to aim or whatever. I don't get like, I'm like, "No, how can you do that?" Like, I go to sleep in the like, if I wake up in the middle of the night, I go to the restroom in the dark. Like, there's
yeah.
just the ambient light coming through the window,
Yep,
that's it.
Right.
Maybe
yep.
a little night light. My family is a big user of night lights, like, just so that
Mhm.
there's, like, a little tiny
Yeah.
glow, and it's like, it's not gonna disrupt their sleep or whatever, but they can still wash their hands and, take care of
Uh-huh.
whatever they need to take care of. But yeah, so yeah, that hydration thing is a really good tip. And I like to let your body do its digesting really well at night. So you don't want to go to sleep on a super full stomach. You want to be hungry, but like if you can stop eating 2 to 3 hours before bed, even 4 hours
Before,
before
yeah.
bed,
Mhm.
that's a really good one to
Yeah.
help, it helps your gut health, and so it supports better sleep and,
Yeah.
I don't ever want
Especially
anyone to go to sleep hungry, but that's
Yeah.
helpful.
right, and don't do it with sugar and carbs and caffeine. When you do have that last meal, remember any carbohydrate you eat can turn into sugar, so that's putting energy into your body that you don't need. Then the caffeine is going to be doing that. So if you can avoid all those and stick pretty much to just kind of a protein source when you do that, that'll help also. Especially if you're really having trouble sleeping.
Yeah, 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 and so so that I would say as well, absolutely, protein is it helps keep you fuller longer. I mean, there's all kinds of really good reasons to increase the amount of protein that we eat, and particularly for women as we get older. So yeah, I on all kinds of levels, love that advice. But yeah, and like people don't realize too how much sugar is in like chips,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because like one, sometimes it's just like literally coating on the flavor, but like a
Yep.
potato chip is a really simple carbohydrate. It's not very complex anymore.
No.
Um, it was
No.
once upon a time a more complex carbohydrate, but
Yeah.
it has
Now
been devoid and processed.
that's right. Now it's just a bunch of toxic chemicals is all it is. There's no nutrient value to that
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah. So, yeah, hydration and nutrition, lights, you mentioned, but it's worth bears repeating a cooler room.
Mhm.
So darker, cooler, and have multiple blankets on your bed or on standby. Like
Mhm.
I, I toss those things on and off my body all night long.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't wake up doing so. It's like I just do it while I'm still
Yeah.
sleeping.
Right.
So, allow yourself the ability to temperature regulate while you're sleeping,
Mhm.
Right.
however you wanna do that.
Which is important because your body naturally goes through temperature changes throughout the night. There's
Mhm,
there's a time when it's the coldest and time when it's the warmest. So just be
yeah,
aware that's going to happen. Like I said, have a light blanket that you move back and forth.
and then, it's getting into, like, the stuff that costs more money, but, invest in good bed and good bedding.
Mhm.
That's kind of a big luxury thing that you can do for yourself that I have no regrets going to my Sleep Number bed, especially because my husband and I are very different sizes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So one mattress is just isn't going to work for both of us. And so we can inflate and change each side of the bed. Sometimes I need it softer depending upon what I've been doing with my workouts and my muscles. Sometimes I need it harder. So I also like the fact that my bed can adjust throughout my lifetime, right? Like
Mhm.
throughout its
Right.
lifetime, I should say.
Right.
And so highly recommend spending a little bit of money on bedding that works really well for you. Your mattress is a place that you're going to spend 8 hours or more a day.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
Exactly.
it might
Yep.
as
Yeah.
well be cool and
If
like
you're doing it
something you
right.
really like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's also really helpful. Just having having sheets that are high quality, that allow you to breathe, that are not synthetic materials, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And the most important is don't forget to go to your podcast and click on sleep lists.
Thank you for saying so. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
if it helps, I really just wanna help as many people as I can get to sleep and get out of a place where sleep is, difficult for them, because
Exactly.
it's so important, it's so helpful for our bodies. It's kind of the best medicine we can give ourselves.
Yep.
Yep.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So can you tell our listeners where they can find
Yeah, how
you?
can they
Yeah,
find you?
they can find, Sleep List at sleeplist.com or anywhere that they listen to podcasts. I'm on a lot of different platforms. If for some reason you don't find me on your favorite platform, there's a contact button at sleeplist.com. Write me a note, and it takes like 2 minutes to get onto a new platform, so
Yeah.
I can get
Okay.
you there
Yeah.
really quick.
And then also in the show notes, we're going to have a link to one of your
Thank you.
podcasts. So I'm thinking about the presidents. There's a
It's
better.
everyone's favorite, I'm telling you. People
Yeah.
really like it.
Okay.
So, it's a
And
good episode.
sleep list. So it's lists. So it's
Yes.
plural, sleeplist.com.
Mhm.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, it's plural, and that's because I made more than one.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's a very neat idea. And the more I talk to people about it, it never crossed my mind. The more I talk to people about it, they're like, that sounds wonderful. That's exactly what I need. It's like, well, here you go then. So
As many people as I can help. I just want people to, like I said, just want people to experience the joy and benefits of good
Yes.
sleep. It is
Yes.
so cool once you start getting enough sleep to realize, like, you're a better person overall. Like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
really are a better person,
Yep.
and you can start making the changes that you wanna make in your life.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Good quality sleep, and you'll have a much better quality daytime. I guarantee it.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I super
yeah.
appreciate it. And
Thank
to
you,
all your
Susan.
listeners, thanks for staying on this journey with me and with you today. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. And for everybody else, thank you also so much for listening. And again, have a great week. And remember, make simple, healthy choices to live a quality life.